everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast episode number 286. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. You guys know what time it is. It's Mondays with Mello. And today I'm talking about controlling my destiny. So I'm going to give you guys a few pointers on, what I've focused on and how I'm at a place in my life where I'm controlling my destiny and my narrative. And it's a long time coming. That's one thing that I'll say. For starters, for a very long time, I have been in survival mode. What that means and consists of is living check to check, always on the grind, just not having a sense of fulfillment in what I was doing, and not necessarily living my life. A lot of us live a life of survival. It's pay rent, pay my bills, make sure I have a roof over my head, make sure I have clothes on my back, running water, food, and that's it. I'm good, right? But that is not necessarily what life is. That's not what it should be. And too many of us are living in survival mode. Outside of the realms of the social issues that are going on in the world and, our unfortunate, life experiences and stories that, we deal with. Like, I'm not, delving into that aspect because, I've spoken on my mental health and, the ups and downs of dealing with anxiety and, people and being an empath, things of that nature. I've already, went into detail about that. So to take that stuff out of your life and take all of that out of the realm and just look at where your life is, I literally survived for, I would say, a good 18 years. Yeah, for a very long time. And I wasn't living. And now I'm starting to live my life, right? I'm no longer just trying to make it. It's no longer about getting by. And it seems like a lot of us, do that and we get settled into this certain life that we have, and it becomes a monotonous hamster wheel that we're constantly running on, where it leads to nowhere, right? We're not experiencing life the way we should. So when I started doing what I love, which was writing, I started to realize that I had a sense of purpose, I had a sense of fulfillment, and even this podcast gives me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Being consistent with my writing and also with this podcast too, I realized that when I stepped into this podcast space, I learned very quickly that if you're consistent and you're constantly creating new content, it will, garner consistent results, right? Because consistency leads to consistent results. And then the other aspect of things is I took a leap of faith and I left the confines of where I've lived the majority of my life, which is in the Northeast, and I moved to the West Coast. And I always felt that I was going to live on the West Coast. I didn't know when it was going to happen or how it was going to happen, but I knew it was going to happen. And I was adamant about not living in cold weather anymore. And here I am, living in Arizona and dealing with 100+ degrees for about 6-7 months of the year. But you know what? I wouldn't change it, because the reality of it is you can run your AC and you don't have to necessarily go outside all the time. I mean, unless you work in an office, which I don't. My full-time job, I pretty much work from home. So I don't have to go outside all the time. When I go outside, it's because I choose to, right? And my leap of faith was huge. I'd never been to Phoenix ever. So imagine you make a decision, you get your first apartment in a brand new complex, it's your first apartment and no one's ever lived in it, ever. You'll be the first person to live in that apartment. So there's that element. You've never been to the city of Phoenix, ever. And the funny thing is when I did move here, I figured out my sense of direction real quick. Like I knew how to get around very easily. Like I have photographic memory. I don't know how or why, but I do. The majority of the city of Phoenix, I have photographic memory of where things are and streets and all that stuff. So it's pretty funny, like when I have conversations with my mom on the phone and I'm like, yeah, and the supermarket's on this street, and then, this food spot is on this street. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like your mom's never been here, so she has no idea what the hell you're talking about. But anyway, I digress. But like I said, I took a leap of faith and I trusted God, and now I'm here, right? So these are some of the components of controlling my destiny and getting to where I wanted to be in life. So there are certain things that I've accomplished, right? I moved across the country and spent thousands of dollars to do that, and it was very well worth it. And then I'm living in my second apartment, and it's a brand new apartment once again. An apartment no one has ever lived in a brand new building, and state of the art gym facility, and grills and flat screen TVs and a pool table and a nice pool and a jacuzzi kind of spa thing, and sitting area and a lounge area, and just all kinds of things that you never think you would get to experience in your life, but here we are, right? So what I'm trying to say is controlling my narrative is so important, and controlling yours is important too. And I need to ask you one question. How are you controlling your destiny and your narrative in your life? How is your mindset? What is your focus on life? And how are you going about focusing on what you can control? Because for me, I have a different mindset and focus on life. And there are certain people that I meet in my life that I know I can have certain conversations about this, about like, what is your focus on life, and what do you love, and what are your passions, and, to get them to think a little bit. And that's the fun element for me. And I, talk to people my age, people a little bit younger than me, people a lot younger than me. It's funny how a lot of the people that are much younger than me think like they have to have their life figured out by like 30. And I laugh. I'm like, I used to be the same way. And then I was 30 and then my life wasn't figured out. And I'm 40 now as I record this, and I have a good amount of my life figured out, but not all of it, because our lives are a consistent journey of growth. And that's what we must learn and understand about ourselves. We need to stop allowing society to dictate who we are, what we are, how to be, what to be, things of that nature. And part of that is media, propaganda, social media, and a whole lot of other elements that I don't feel the need to want to discuss, because the topic today is controlling my destiny. And I want you to control your destiny. But I am sharing what's on my mind about how I went about controlling my destiny, because it's important. And hopefully you will take this and say, this is pretty good. This is not a bad deal that, I've been able to incorporate. So if you don't want to live in the city you're living in anymore, plan it out and figure out where you want to live and what kind of life you want to have. I wanted palm trees, be by the beach. If you guys have listened to previous podcasts, I did want to live in California, but now that I'm here in Phoenix, I'm very thankful that I'm not in California because, man, are there a lot of things going on there. And a lot of those things aren't the greatest. So I want you all to find your happiness, find your joy, find your purpose, pursue your passions, and like I always say, be 80 with memories, not 80 with regrets. And I'm going to leave that there. That's my podcast for today. I just want to thank you guys for listening. As always, theaquarianmindpodcast.com. That's my podcast website. aquarianmindrights.com. That's my personal website. I'll try to drop that in the description and all that good stuff. A lot of good content coming this week. A lot of great content coming in September for my podcast. I've planned it out. Don't worry. I'll drop a couple of topics that I will be discussing in a later podcast this week. With that said, have a good week, everyone. Be good, everyone, and go accomplish your goals.